Good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming down. My name's Jason from the Awareness Foundation. I recognise a few faces in the audience, so nice to meet you again. And for anybody that's never heard of me before, about 2 years ago, I was involved in creating the Awareness Foundation just at the beginning of last year. And it came off the back of trying to create a group originally called Common Sense. I was trying to find people that had any left in 2020, which wasn't the easiest thing to find. I got banned on Facebook, banned here, there and everywhere. Went on Telegram, tried to create a community called Common Sense, and basically got a small bunch of people together that we created the Awareness Foundation. And the idea was to basically try and find all the stuff that was being flung around, all the information you saw on Telegram, work out what of it was actually of any use, what of it was real, and then what problems would people want to know about and what solutions could we find. So our sort of philosophy was to say, okay, there's the problem and there's the solution, because it's all well and good going, here's an issue, but if you don't give someone a solution to it, they tend to panic and run around the streets. So tonight is about sort of where this has matured into. And about 9-10 months ago, I'd sort of grown fed up with trying to sort of gain other groups together. There was lots of different people trying to do lots of different good things. I got banned from every Telegram group going for suggesting that we work together. Everybody was just like, no, I'm creating my own reality TV show and I'm busy doing that. And I was looking at ways to fix things. I used to live overseas for about 15 years and I sort of came back here and looked at the weather and went, I don't really want to be here. I decided I was going to buy an island somewhere. I thought I would get a bunch of investors together, buy an island, turn it into a country, and basically go and hide there and wait for the world to come back to normal. I then bumped into a friend of mine now, a guy called Craig, who can't be here today, but Craig was ex-military. We both ironically lived in the same country for 15 years and we never even met each other there. Bumped into each other here. He had a similar idea to me but slightly different. He made me feel guilty about the fact that I was running away from my country, ex-military guy. We needed to defend this place. So we basically started comparing notes of what he was up to and what I was up to, and tonight we're going to explain to you basically what that's about. So I mentioned to you about I was going to buy an island to try and turn it into a country. So the theory we came up with is that we had to think big. One of the things that we decided is that one of the reasons why I could never gain enough traction of people trying to work together. Can everybody hear me okay at the back? Sorry, yeah, great, okay. I'm not a fan of public speaking, so I find myself doing this nowadays because I feel like we have to. Basically, we worked out that one of the reasons we couldn't attract people the first time round was because we just didn't look big enough. People would go, okay, well, why should I join your group? What's so better about you than what I'm currently doing? So we were looking at sort of how do we do this. So we came up with this sort of theory that if you just don't think big enough, most people won't follow you. So we decided to think as big as we possibly could. So one of the things we started to investigate was how do you create a country? Because I'd been working on it with the island, so we started looking into that. And we think we've worked out how to create a structure that we believe can reflect who you are. Because one of the biggest problems is most people don't want to follow someone else. I was talking to a number of different people, various different ideas that they were up to. Some of those looked a bit like sort of structures that would be trusts that you could join and various different sort of clever tricks. But none of them really appealed to what I thought was everybody. And you need something that appeals to literally everyone, because I don't know if you found the same as me, but generally when you find groups, they tend to have a leader that goes, I believe in this, and the whole group tends to go that sort of way. You get the fluffy crew, as I call them, and the common law crowd, and everyone's sort of following one sort of set of thinking. We believe that if we want to make everybody sort of go, okay, right, we all need to pull in the same direction, there needs to be something that relates to you, not relates to them. So we think we found the missing ingredient with what we're up to with this. And what I'm going to try and do today is explain to you why we think this might be one of the better ideas sort of going around the market. So I'm going to explain who we are, what the plan is, an introduction to the structure, why we think this can work, what we've done so far, what we're aiming to achieve, what we're looking for from you, and where do we go from here, and then at the end, if we've got time, we'll go through some questions and answers. So how many people in the room identify with being English? We talked about a country. How many people here go, I'm English? 1, 2, 3, oh, quite a few. There we go. That's probably the most English people I've seen in a room when I've been doing this. What does it mean to be English? How many people think they're British, not English? Okay. How many people don't think they're either? Or aren't either? Americans are Irish and things in the room. Okay, so what does it mean to be English? Is it the place? Is it the place we stand on? Is it the land? What is England? Have you ever stopped to think, what is England? It's one of those things you just take for granted and you think, well, that's where I come from, this is what it is, this is what it looks like. Who owns it? There's another question. So who does own it? Does anybody want to guess who owns England?
Crown.
The Queen, the Crown. Any advances on that?
Not anymore. Since 2000.
Did she ever?
Crown Corporation.
Okay, so how many people know that there's more than one Crown Corporation? A couple, okay. So the Crown Corporation is not the Queen, just in case you didn't know. And the Queen doesn't own the land that you stand on, even though she possibly claims to do so. But every time anyone's ever taken her to court and said prove it, she's never been able to prove it, ever. And they use a thing called expediency. If you look that one up, that's where the law is that will go with what we think it is because it's more convenient just to go down that route. That's what's happened every time anyone's ever questioned the Queen. So where does it come from? Now, we all land on a rock. Round, square, flat, whatever it's shaped, star-shaped, I don't know what we landed on. But the reality is who created it? Was it aliens? Was it God? Was it science? Was it a big bang? Does it really matter? But ultimately, that piece of land appeared somewhere along the way. And there's a bunch of us that sort of hang out on that go, that's different to the one that looks like Spain or Italy. But what does it mean to be English? So we started looking into what does it take to be a country? Is England, or how is England, when was England even formed, was the questions we started looking into. Because I was looking at the island, Craig went, no, we need to look here. So we started to look into, okay, how do we challenge these people that own our country, that are doing bad things to us? And there's a thing called the Montevideo Convention that happened in 1933 in Uruguay. I probably can't read this, but it basically says that there was a convention in 1933. There's been a few other things since then. The UN, for example, was another person, or group, I call it person, but it is actually a person. Disco lights flashing in my eyes. So basically there's 4 things that happened in the Montevideo thing. It used to be a pub.
You don't want the disco lights, right?
You can turn it off, that would be helpful. So in the Montevideo Agreement, they basically worked on the basis of a defined territory, a government, the ability to form relations with others, and that was the 4 things. Now the UN have added a couple of other things in, like a flag and a few other bits and pieces, but generally there's only about 4 or 6 things that make you a country. One of them is that you must have a leader and a parliament, and a national anthem. That comes into it as well. So can anybody here name me the leader of Scotland? Yeah, wee Jimmy Cranky woman. Can anybody name me the leader of England? Or point me to the Parliament of England? So when we were stumbling across this and we went, okay, well, they've got that in Ireland, they've got that in Wales, and Wales is not even a country, it's a principality. When we got to England, we realised that England doesn't have a leader and it doesn't have a parliament and doesn't fit that. So we worked out that England doesn't exist because it doesn't fit the criteria. Now on top of that, we then looked into trade agreements. So that's another one, define territory, form relations with other nation states. Form a relationship is generally either they identify that you're a country or you have a trade agreement with each other, agreements to do stuff. Every trade agreement around the world is not with England. England has no trade agreements in place with anyone on the planet anywhere, and the law in England doesn't belong to England, it belongs to England and Wales. So England doesn't exist, or didn't, until St George's Day, where we decided to reinvent it. So Craig had registered when I met him in the Republic of England, and I'll explain what this is all about in a minute. And we decided that it might be possible to reinvent England and actually bring it back, because we worked out that England hasn't existed since about 900. Believe it or not, it was actually killed off many, many years ago, and since then it has been acting as England, but England hasn't complied with anything that international laws confine a country to be. So we decided we needed to have a structure, we needed a parliament, etc, etc. So we thought, right, the best way to do it is go back to old county lines, and this is not the oldest county lines, but we went down to 15 counties. So we separated it into people that have something in common with each other, in theory. So all of these different people have the same accents and various bits and pieces, and say, okay, right, everybody locally start working with each other and start rebuilding this place that belongs to us anyway, because it doesn't belong to the people that keep claiming it, and they can't prove it. In addition to that, we then worked out we needed a flag, and we went, okay, well, what's the flag of England? What was the flag of England? So where does the St George's Cross come from? So when we started looking into it, we realised that this flag, which was called the flag of St Edmund, which used to be the flag of England, and was carried into battle by the English before St George's Cross was brought in. And when St George was made the patron saint of England, who apparently has never even been to England and is the patron saint of 16 different countries, prior to that, a guy called St Edmund was the patron saint of England, and St Edmund was the king of Norfolk and was the last king of England that was killed trying to defend this country from foreign invaders, which were the Vikings. And when he lost and died, which became 20th of November, which was our flag day, and was the patron saint day of England once upon a time, before St George came along and killed the dragon. There's your dragon. Before that, there was actually, or after he died, there was actually 3 kings on the throne at exactly the same time, of 4 different nationalities and about 5 different parliaments. So if you go back in history, England didn't always have one ruler. You used to have to vote in the ruler in this country, believe it or not, prior to William the Conqueror that came along and invaded the place. So everything we have now is based upon invasion and people deciding to treat you like a slave since William the Conqueror's days. So we needed a parliament structure. So what we've decided to do is this. And when I say we, there is the first part of this. We've formed what's called a round table. So we've got 15 people. I'm one of those people. We currently have 5. We're aiming to get 15, and we're looking for people that are absolutely dedicated to not being involved in running this. We don't want any ego. I have no interest in being any of the people below that, nor does Craig, nor do any of the others on there. So our job is to act as an architect. Go out and say, okay, we've got an idea, we've drawn a picture, this is what we want to build. You then step forward if you really want to get on with building a better way for our way of life. So what we're going to plan to do initially, because we need to run it until such point that people step forward and take over, is we're looking for 15 mayors initially, 1 for each of the counties, to say, right, this is my home and I'm going to rebuild it. Their job is to go out and find local assembly people, so people that are doing good things in the area, want to work within the area to build things, and then once we've got some people in place in that, we'll take 3 people from each assembly area, and they will be voted in by the people to go and form a House of Representatives. So people from each area will then go to a central parliament. The 45 people that represent it will be equal. There'll be 3 from each county, so you'll have this part of the country is better than that part of the country. Once you've got the House of Representatives, a team will step forward and say, I want to be president and vice president, and the people will vote for a president who will steer the ship. They will be accountable. Every single person in that, including the round table, are fully accountable to the people. They will be answerable to the people. They can be removed by the people. Okay. So we needed a set of rules. We needed a constitution, because that's one of the things that they say you need. We have a constitution on our website, which I'll point you to in a bit later. But this was our proclamation. So effectively, we needed a mission statement. So I'm going to read it to you for anybody who can't read it, and you can sort of hear what it's all about. All men and women are created equal and are endowed by nature an unalienable life, liberty, and the choice to govern and to protect themselves, their children, and their earth free from oppression, violence, and tyranny. When any system of government is destructive to this condition and purpose, it is the inherent right and duty of free men and women to discard any legal, political, psychological allegiances and create among themselves new communities to safeguard their lives and liberties. Therefore, let it be known and acknowledged by all affected and interested parties under the laws of nature that it is the inalienable right of men and women to self-govern and to covenant into independent self-regulating bodies to provide safety and liberty to their families and communities such that they can enjoy the freedoms bestowed upon us by the Creator of men and women. The men and women of the Republic of England accept that any representation of a free and sentient being requires the consent of the governed. Henceforth, any and all let it be known that they are not bound by or to the Crown, the Church of England, the Church of Rome, or any corporation imposing its will as government, nor any other opposing occupying force that has attempted to strip the men and women of England of inalienable freedoms and liberties. We the people peacefully establish an independent jurisdiction and common community known as the Republic of England. The Republic of England is not established to overturn any government of corporation or any sovereign reign, but rather to bond men and women into a community under the rules of natural law. A freely elected House of Representatives and a freely elected local assemblies together will represent the self-regulating body of collective responsibility of the Republic of England. These houses of representation will operate within the dominion of the land known as England, and they will be accountable to the people and will collectively abide by the rules of the Constitution of the Republic of England to protect us all. All men and women of the Republic of England solemnly vow to maintain and defend the laws and customs established through the Constitution, and the people will at all times defend and safeguard the men and women of the Republic of England from any and all internal or outside interference that attempts to challenge its right to exist. If a complaint against a man or woman of the Republic of England is formed, either internally or externally, it must be heard and settled before a jury of peers, which will be selected at random from the men and women of the Republic of England. The Republic of England will at all times defend the rights of its men and women to trade freely and fairly, both internally and externally, without interference or oppression. The rights of the people must at all times be the priority to any assembly that is established by the men and women of the Republic of England. Infrastructure and enterprise will be created by the men and women of the Republic of England to support the needs of all men and women, both inside and outside the Republic of England. The concepts will at all times be based on fair systems and solutions that do not limit access to any man or woman of the Republic. We do hereby witness and establish of the Republic of England under the jurisdiction and authority of natural law, and set our names freely without reservation as free men and women to this proclamation. So again, as a recap, the round table are looking for mayors and local assemblies. That's stage one. We are just simply building it. We need people like you to step forward and become those people. Stage two, it will be the House of Representatives, the Executive Office, obviously the President. The round table will then step away. The round table are asking for one thing and one thing only once they step away: a veto over the President if all 15 people watch a thing going to Parliament going, right, we're going to pass this rule, and we look at it and en masse, bearing in mind that we cared enough to build this in the first place and put ourselves at risk to even put this idea out there, we are going, if all 15 of us say it's a really stupid idea, we can veto the President and go and ask the people. So you get a referendum on any subject that we think might not be the best interest for the people. That's it. After that, it's all run by the Parliament. So the most important thing is that from day one there's going to be transparency. So I don't know if you know this, but the British government have no reason or accountability to tell you what they spend the money on. They have no obligation to give you accounts. If you ask for a freedom of information request and it costs them too much money to produce it, they can actually request that you pay money to get the information, and if it's not, they put up an absurd amount of money for you to actually get information that you should be freely allowed to have. And in addition to that, as you saw in the proclamation, the idea is to create enterprise. And one of the first things we're going to do is to start bringing people in to work for the country, and their job is to basically offer services to the population. So if you're going to get a group of people together, we've come to the conclusion that the only reason that people would actually start to go in a different direction and follow a group is because that group offers something of value to that group, to those people. And we believe, this has come from lots of research and from conversations and things like this, that the most important thing that a lot of people are looking for right now is security, protection from the lunatics. Now, whether that's them putting the price of food up, whether it's them coming around your house or bombarding you with bills and trying to steal money out of your pocket every 10 minutes, we are initially, our most important thing that we're going to be doing is defending the population. So we believe we can, if we do this right, attract a lot of people. There's a lot of people, I'm sure if you're sitting in this room, you probably cottoned on to the fact that there are a bunch of lunatics running the asylum. Now, there's going to be a load of people running around that you think, and you probably heard if you haven't said it yourself, oh, I've given up those people, you can't wake them up, they're beyond help, blah, 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 blah. The reality is those people that are just milling along are just like we were until you worked it out. They just haven't, something hasn't triggered there yet. And if we give up on them, that lot keep brainwashing them to do what they want them to do. So for us, we've got to do that too. So one of the things we're going to do is we're going to do a thing where we're going to go around and teach people things, but in a gentle fashion. Where tonight I can tell you they're a bunch of lunatics, you're going to go, yeah, I know. You tell that to some other people, they're like, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist. So what we're going to do is we're going to do what they've done to us. We learn from them. So they use very simple messaging systems. They go hands, face, space, hands, face, space. They use psychologists to work out that that three-letter thing is a way to get people. So we are doing things like read their rules, which I'll come back to in a bit, but read their rules. Or all tax is voluntary, which is another one that most people don't realise. So here's a few facts that we're going to go around on a session called Did You Know? So we're going to do presentations like this to the uninformed, or the ill-informed, that say, did you know? Now, if we go around posting flyers through people's doors saying, did you know that all tax is voluntary, and if you want to know a bit more, come down to here for a free drink. And when they get here, we tell them things like this. For example, councils get paid by private companies to collect your waste. Did you know that? So you pay council tax, and most people that think, I don't want to pay council tax, but who's going to collect my bins? That's the first question you ask yourself, because you always think for your council tax, well, you get your bins collected at least. You don't get a lot else for it, but you get your bins collected. However, Biffa and Viola and all these companies that have the contract are actually paying the council to collect your waste. So you're paying the council and they're paying the council. And then Biffa and Viola take it to waste to energy plants that are often owned by either the government or by Vanguard, if you've ever heard of them. Secretly hidden, but they own them. And they turn that waste into energy and sell it back to the energy companies that sell it back to you at a massive profit. And currently, the energy that is being generated from our waste is generating more power than the 3 largest power plants in the UK combined. And you're paying them for it. And they're being paid for it. The UK government were recently assessed in a UK court case as having been likely the funder of terrorism. So basically, the 7/7 bombers received money from the UK government, and under the same basis of one of their family, a family member that funded an ISIS person, they basically assumed that the UK government probably must have funded one of those people because they were on benefits. So basically the UK government has been named in a court case and made guilty in a court case of funding terrorism. It's a criminal offence for you to fund anyone that funds terrorism. Now think about that for a moment. You fund the government, they fund terrorism, you're a criminal. 80% of the cost of all alcohol goes to the government. Now, we're standing in a pub, you go downstairs and buy a pint and it's a tenner. 80% of that is going to the government. 20% is going to the person who's just served you. The oil price, so the Ukraine war, the oil price the day that the Ukraine war started was $102 a barrel. It went up to just under $120 a barrel within 2 weeks, and the fuel prices went up by about 40% and followed them. So the petrol prices at the pumps went up about 40%. They've dipped about 10% off of that, which brings it down to about 35% of what it was. The oil price today, or as in this morning, was about $91.50 a barrel. Yet the fuel prices at the pump haven't come down. Energy prices are going up, and you hear Ukraine is the reason. Why is it that we've got a price that is 10% lower, really, in the cost of the raw material, yet everything's gone up? And the government currently collects over £1 per litre in tax on fuel in the petrol pump. So there's a few things. Did everybody know that? Bearing in mind you're all wide awake. Has anybody there learned anything? Okay, let me try a few more. So, you won't probably be able to read this at the back, but there's Boris Johnson. This is Rishi Sunak, possibly one of the new leaders, and we could put what her name is up there. Yeah, her. That's HM Revenues and Customs, HMRC. This is Companies House. These are companies that are registered on Companies House and on, if you look for a credit reference agency called Dun & Bradstreet, so you'll see here D&B Business Directory. Dun & Bradstreet is the largest credit reference agency in the world, and they list companies that are operating for profit, like McDonald's and Tesco's, for example. And you will find this bunch all on there, next to them, operating exactly the same as McDonald's. So if McDonald's came to you and said, give me 50% of your money that you've worked for this week, what would you say? When HMRC does it, what do you say? Did you know that Boris Johnson was a company? Did you know that Companies House was a company on Companies House? So let's look at our new leaders. Liz Truss, Rishi Sunak, leaders, rulers, call it what you like. Well, Rishi Sunak, sorry it's a bit blurry, but Rishi Sunak and Sajid Javid, basically were the two people that walked out on Boris Johnson. Both of them are tied to the World Economic Forum, hand in glove. This is the World Economic Forum's list of who you don't really want to know. That's, believe it or not, Matt Hancock, back in 2016, talking about how wonderful it is to work with the World Economic Forum and building back better and all the other stuff that goes on with it. In June 2019, the fourth industrial regulations for the fourth industrial revolution were put on the British government's website. If you've ever read the book, The Fourth Industrial Revolution, written by Klaus Schwab, he wrote another book called The Great Reset. If you read the book, it ends with, you will own nothing and you'll be happy. And it's on the British government's website. These people are conspiring with terrorists. That's a criminal offence. And yet, we allow them to do it. Klaus Schwab's dad was a Nazi officer, just for the record, if you didn't know that. Here's another one, law and legal. So I mentioned about the common law crowd. I'm not knocking the common law crowd, but it's a little bit simplistic to go common law, lawful, legal, and all that sort of stuff. It's actually free, not free. You know, when somebody makes up a rule and calls it a law or calls it the legal system, it's a rule that somebody else made up that you choose to follow. But the reality is they break them into two. They break it into, did you injure or harm or upset a human, or didn't you? And if you did, that's the law. And if you didn't, then it's the legal system. We'll just make up a bunch of stuff. Well, here's one that they made up in 1939, just before the Second World War, the Cancer Act. Now, just out of curiosity, how many people in here have heard of the Cancer Act before now? So, I don't know if you can read this, but it basically makes it a criminal offence to announce that you found a cure for cancer. You will go to jail if you tell anybody, I found a potential cure for cancer, and somebody who has possibly found a cure for cancer was shipped off to France and put in jail in France for doing exactly that. Because in France, you're guilty until proven innocent. So they didn't even have to prove him guilty. They just went, you are, go away, don't come back. He served, I think, 7 years in jail. Just been recently released. So just before the Second World War, they thought that making a law banning you telling somebody that you can fix cancer was a good idea. I mentioned to you all taxes are voluntary. You know, all tax is voluntary. It's a great three-letter one, better than hands, face, space. America, that bunch of taxes, which I don't know if you can read it because it's slightly blurry, but it includes everything you could possibly think of. 100 years ago, America never had any one of those taxes, and it was the largest economy in the world. Today, America is the largest economy in the world. So they did it pre all these taxes, and they've done it with taxes. They've just changed the way that they do it. The reality is you don't require tax to make a country work. I lived in a jurisdiction that was tax-free for 15 years. I never paid income tax all the time I was there, or capital gains tax, and it was a very rich country. So taxes are an idea that we believe we have to pay because you think the whole world's going to come to a standstill. The reality is it doesn't work like that. The pineal gland, or the pineal gland, if you've never heard of it, is this little bead of thing that sits in your head. And if you've never heard of it, what it is often known as your third eye, or your thinking thing. And basically what it does is it gives you critical thinking. It actually gives you the ability to work out whether it's a good idea or a bad idea. And it also does another thing, which is release melatonin. So melatonin makes you sleep. And if you don't get melatonin, you don't sleep very well. If you don't sleep very well, how useful are you? Give yourself 3-4 days of no sleep. How critical is your thinking? One thing that clogs that up is fluoride. So there's now fluoride in many people's water streams. If you actually write to your water company and ask them, can they actually provide you a certificate showing that water is fit for human consumption, you will never get it in a million years because it's not. And one of the most absorbent parts of your body is under your tongue. So if you're still brushing your teeth with fluoride toothpaste, you are brushing your teeth with your under your tongue as a place where this goes in. It clogs this up. If it clogs it up, you don't sleep very well and you don't think very well. So if you wonder why some of these people don't get it, they're probably using fluoride toothpaste. So that's sort of the halfway point of what I'm talking about. If you're vaguely interested, these are our contact details. I will put these up again in a bit, but I'm just going to, at this point, often people go, this is never going to work, this is really dangerous, this is a really stupid idea, how on earth are we going to get enough people together? So I'm just going to play you a quick video to sort of give you an idea of how to answer that question.
Then one day, a gang of a few hundred people showed up. Need to zoom in some more to see them. I know they're there somewhere. Zoom in. There they are. And this gang of a few hundred said to the throng of 100 million, "From now on, you all have to give us a cut of everything you earn."
This is an accurate graphical comparison between the number of American taxpayers and the number of U.S. congressmen.
And the throng said, "Gosh, do we have to give you a cut of what we earn?" And the gang of a few hundred said, "Yes, you have to." And the throng said, "Well, okay, I guess we have to." And one little troublemaker asked, "What if we don't?" The gang of a few hundred didn't like this and said, "If you do not comply, we shall unleash upon you our legions of enforcers." And the throng cried, "Oh no, please don't. We will comply, we will pay."
This is an accurate graphical comparison between the number of American taxpayers and the total number of IRS employees.
Time went by and the gang of a few hundred said, "Now we want more of what you earn." And this kept happening over and over again until eventually some of the throng were paying almost half of what they earned to the gang. Whenever the gang demanded more, the throng would say, "Golly, we're already having a tough time. Do we really need to give you even more?" And the gang always said, "Yes, you must, or we shall unleash our legion of enforcers." Now the gang of a few hundred was getting trillions of dollars every year, spending it on wars and pyramid schemes, giving away goodies to their friends, buying influence, and doing lots of other things. And some of the throng started saying, "We don't really like the war you're waging with the money we give you. Do we really have to be paying for that?" And the gang said, "Yes, we demand it. Don't make us send out our legion of enforcers." And some of the throng said, "You're taking our money and giving it to huge corporations and giant banks, and some people who just don't want to work. A lot of these things we don't like." And the gang said, "We don't care. We will decide how to spend it. You just do as you're told, or else." And the throng said, "Okay, I guess we have to." But eventually the throng got so fed up, so angry, that they took a drastic step. One day they said to the gang, "We don't like what you're doing. We want a new gang." And after pouring a huge amount of time and money into the effort, they replaced the gang with a new gang. Then the throng pleaded with the new gang, "Now, at long last, can we keep our own money, or at least keep more of it?" And the new gang said, "Sorry, but after much discussion, we've decided that you can't. You have to keep giving us what you've been giving, in fact, a little bit more than before." The throng was distraught and said, "This is dreadful. But after all, what choice do we have? I mean, they say we must comply, and they have that scary legion of enforcers. We're powerless against them. We'd better just do as we're told." So they did as they were told, got poorer and poorer, and lived miserably ever after. But after all, what else could they have done? What power could this throng possibly have compared to this gang of a few hundred and their enforcers? What chance would this thing have against this thing? How could these 100 million people ever hope to successfully resist the awesome power of this tiny little dot? In case anyone missed this, let's review. Here's them. Here are their enforcers. Here's us. Them, us. Them, us. Does anything about this seem just a little strange to you? Are you perhaps wondering, why does the throng need the permission of the dot to do anything? Why do these people feel the need to ask this tiny little dot if they can keep more of what they earn? Why would they spend year after year literally begging for lower taxes from this little dot? Is this dot just really darn intimidating? Is it very persuasive in its reasoning? To be blunt, why would this throng give a rodent's backside what this tiny little dot wanted? The fact that this tiny dot has the gall to issue such demands to such a throng is pretty startling in and of itself. But what is far more amazing is that the throng obeys this minuscule little parasitic gang of control freaks. What could possibly explain this? Let's ask the dot. This is how it works. When we, the dot, take your money and spend it on things you don't like, we're representing you. In fact, though you're not allowed to actually keep your own money, you're allowed to decide which little dot will steal half of what you earn. So that really means that you're in charge and that you're agreeing to give us your money. In fact, we, the dot, are serving you when we take your money and spend it on things you don't like. And so you should thank us and treat us with great respect and honor for having robbed you on your behalf for your own good in order to serve you by doing things you don't want us to do. So there you have it. I hope that cleared everything up for you.
So how many people are happy with what they're spending their money on with the government? Did anybody see this article this morning? This is something I'm just adding in ad lib today. Did anybody see this? British soldiers get told to get ready for war with Russia. That was just this morning in the newspaper. How many people saw this interview with the chief of staff of the military? This is the guy that runs all the military staff. This is probably about a month ago on Sky News, where this guy was talking about we will have boots on the ground in Europe within a short period of time, and we should prepare for potentially 160,000. I don't know where he's going to get them all from, but he said we should have 160,000. In that interview, he said this.
Requires forces across defence that are modernised, relevant, and harness the potential of the fourth industrial revolution.
Is anybody bothered by that? Yeah. The guy that's defending us talking about the fourth industrial revolution. Not sure what's happening there, sorry. So, while we're on these, and I'll just quickly play you this just to sort of show you that we're not just about the people that attack your pocket, we're about the people that are attacking your lives. Does everybody know who this guy is? Yes. Ever seen an interview with him? This is Klaus Schwab's right-hand man. So the man that talks about the fourth industrial revolution, as does the military. This is his right-hand man with a couple of comments.
The biggest question, maybe in economics and politics of the coming decades, will be what to do with all these useless people. The problem is more boredom and what to do with them, and how will they find some sense of meaning in life when they are basically meaningless, worthless. My best guess at present is a combination of drugs and computer games as a solution for more. It's already happening. Under different titles, different headings, you see more and more people spending more and more time or solving their inner problems with drugs and computer games, both legal drugs and illegal drugs. If you look at Japan today, and Japan is maybe 20 years ahead of the world in everything, and you see all these new social phenomenon of people having relationships with virtual spouses. And you have people who never leave the house and just live through computers. I think once you're superfluous, you don't have power. Again, we're used to the age of the masses of the 19th and 20th century, where you saw all these successful, massive uprisings, revolutions, revolts. So we are used to thinking about the masses as powerful. But this is basically a 19th century and 20th century phenomenon. I don't think that the masses, even if they somehow organize themselves, stand much of a chance. We are not in Russia of 1917 or in 19th century Europe. What we're talking about now is like a second industrial revolution, but the product this time will not be textiles or machines or vehicles or even weapons. The product this time will be humans themselves. We are basically learning to produce bodies and minds. Bodies and minds are going to be, I think, the two main products of the next wave of all these changes. That is optional. Again, and if you think about it from the viewpoint of the poor, it looks terrible because throughout history, death was the great equalizer. The big consolation of the poor throughout history was that, okay, these rich people, they have it good, but they're going to die just like me. But think about a world, say, in 50 years, 100 years, where the poor people continue to die, but the rich people, in addition to all the other things they also get exemption from death.
Apparently, we have no ability to stand up to them. So we decided we were going to. So if you ever decide to follow up, you're going to bump into this on our website, so you'll understand the thing that we've got available, which is an English national and a protected member. So basically, it's exactly the same, except for the only one thing difference is a protected member is somebody who is a resident of the United Kingdom but doesn't hold a British passport. So if you're a British passport holder, or you were born in Britain, anywhere in the United Kingdom, you can become an English national, which a lot of Scots and English and or the Welsh and stuff are a bit like, oh, can we start England, Scotland? So the plan we've got here is we want to roll this out all around the world. So right now we're trying to prove this in England because we found out it didn't exist. But if you do decide to join, if you're looking to join, you're an English national if you're a Brit, or if you hold a passport or you were born in England or Britain, you're there. If you're a resident of the United Kingdom, you're there. Everything is the same except for passports. We will have passports at some point, but we haven't worked out how to do it for protected people yet. So, again, you might not be able to see this in the back, but this is our plan. So I'm going to explain to you now how we plan on going about it. Hopefully you'll think it's a good idea. This is about numbers. If you remember the little tiny dot, they are tiny little dots. We're not. All we've got to do is get organised. Remember him saying, you're not organised, and even if they tried to get organised, they wouldn't be very good at it. If we get organised, we could be very good at it. And this is our plan. So, we are asking people that want to join the Republic to pay a one-time joining fee. So, I recently had to get a visa for my partner, and it cost me nearly £3,000 to get a 2-year visa for her to stay in the UK. So, the reality is that's what the UK tell me I've got to pay for somebody to be here for 2 years standing on this land, even though they have no right to do so. We're charging £300 for a lifetime membership to hang around here and be protected and a bunch of other stuff. £500 for a couple or £100 for anybody under the age of 18. And it doesn't go up once you hit 18, you have to pay another premium. So if you join me younger, that's it. So for that fee, you will get ongoing information and advice on how to protect yourself, how to learn stuff, starting with a status correction course. Now, that basically, our course isn't just about status correction. It's about really understanding who you are, which sounds really pretentious when you say it. But actually, a lot of people, even if you've cottoned on to the whole birth certificate thing and all of the merry-go-round that is, you probably still don't understand who you are. Because there is a bunch of tricks that they've been playing. And what we try to do is make sure you understand A, how to unpick yourself, B, who you really are, and then C, how to do anything about it. So you get a course, it's normally £100 to go on the course, and it's a 1-day full training course. There's some people in the room have been on it already, so you can ask them in their opinion. That's built in within the price. You don't have to choose to do your status correction if you choose not to. However, we think you should learn the process because we believe that re-education is going to be the key to standing up to these idiots. If you know how to go, you have no power over me, I know it, you know it, and now I know how to beat you with it, that's it, they're done. You literally won't be scared anymore. That fear thing will go out the window. So we will be doing regular updates. We do free training. I do presentations, and other people are doing presentations on a weekly basis every 10 days or so. So you'll be access to lots and lots of free information as a member of the Republic. Then we're going to start to roll out some services. So the first service which we've actually launched this week is our support service in phase 1. So our support service, which was originally called the Defence Service, but we've turned it into the support service because we think we can actually do more than just defend people. But initially, on day 1, the support service is going to be offering to you the ability, if you choose to do so, and there's no obligation to do so. So if you join, you don't have to take any of the service. No point anyone's going to say you have to pay this. So just so you know, should you choose to pay it, in this case, if you pay 60% of what you're currently paying for your council tax bill, you will never pay any of those personal taxes ever again. And if you don't know how to fight them, we have a team of experts that will do it for you. All you do is you pick up the phone and go, there you go, I've got a parking ticket, the tax man's after me, and we will make them go away. And these are people that have beaten every one of those things. They have proven it. They've taken things like the council tax register. We've got people that have been removed from the register. You know, all tax is voluntary, I guarantee you. And I can sit here and answer for hours how to do that, but I can assure you that our team know how to do that, have done it, got the t-shirt. Me personally, I've been back in this country for 2 years. I've paid any of those things at all, nor my mortgage. I'll come back to that in a bit as well. Phase 1 will also include, and it's not quite ready yet, we've got a bit of work to do, but we're going to have a frustration service. So, for example, with your car is your weak spot because it sits outside your house. You can protect you, but because your car's out on the street, you don't really have a choice because some horrible bailiff will come around and stick a clamp on your car and then try and tow it away. But there are only ways that they can do that, and there are other ways that they can't do it. We've looked into the ways that they can't do it, and we've worked out how to beat them. So if you want to, we're going to have a re-registration service. So again, if you don't know this, the word registration or register is to give away something. So if you register your car, you register your house, your kids, you've given it away by accident. So you register your car, it's an easy one to see. If you look at your registration documents on your car, it will say you're the registered keeper, not the owner. The owner is the DVLA. If you have a car, a company's on company's house, you're not the owner of that company. You're a shareholder, you're a director, but you're not the owner. Company's house owns it. Even your kids, you a pair of people renting your kids, parents, you gave them away. That comes back to explaining the whole birth certificate thing. So we're going to have a service we think we can deliver for £150 a year, where you'll be able to re-register your car, and I won't go into great details how we're doing this tonight yet, because a lot of smoke and mirrors and tricks. We will tell you, but for obvious reasons I've got to be slightly careful with some of the things we say. But we have a way where when you will re-register your car, you'll have the right to drive your car, it will be your car, but basically they won't be able to take your car, and it'll be held in trust in an offshore jurisdiction, and basically they'll be chasing around all over the place trying to speak to the owner. You'll be going, it's not my car, and if it's not your car, they can't take it. And they will be chasing after addresses where we'll have people at those addresses that will know how to tell them to politely go away. The second one is a debt deferment scheme. So we have combined 2 services on debts. So for example, I stumbled across the fact that banks were a big mess a few years ago, and I do lots of talks on it. My background's finance. I've been challenging my mortgage company to prove to me that they lent me the money, because I actually lent them the money. So if you ever want to challenge debts, all debts, believe it or not, nobody lends you any money at all, ever. You lend them money and they lend it back to you. It's smoke and mirrors. But there is another service which we're doing with the Republic where you can just annoy the living daylights out of them with their own system. So if you know how to, you can actually complain to people that you owe money to, be it utilities or debts. And if you make the right complaint and you do it in the right way, you can probably defer debts payments for up to about 10 years. You can just keep doing a certain step and they have to keep playing along with it, and then you get to the end of it and then you go, I've got another question. And you just keep doing it and do it and do it. So if you wanted to defer your debts and not challenge the debts, and the challenge is to go prove you actually owe me the money, but you just want to say, yeah, okay, I'll owe you the money, but I've got a question, that will be a service where you can defer your debts for up to 10 years potentially, maybe even longer. I've heard of people doing it up to 20 years. But we think we can do it for at least 10 years without it being difficult. And then phase 2, so for the same money, no change of payment, for phase 2, once we get to 5,000 members, we believe we can have physical bodies on the ground and these will be ex-military people. We've got people waiting to join us that will be available to come out to you to protect you in the event of something going not so well. Now, just a quick one, which I meant to actually play. I don't know if you've seen these type of people floating around. You're on the south coast. These are, if you go to any of the coastal ports, you will see scenes like this happening every day. Yesterday, 1,297 people that look a bit like these guys, look very stressed. Immigrants coming to this country, chatting, running away from somewhere that was persecuting them. These guys are coming into our ports every day of the week. Nigel Farage even got on the bandwagon this morning and went, 1,297 of this lot turned up here yesterday. This is happening every day of the week. We've been going to the hotels where these guys are knocking around and asking them where they're from. I say we've got some ex-military guys that speak their language, and they've been having a conversation with them. And they're coming from places like Albania, Afghanistan. They're here being trained by the British military on how to protect you. They are TSG type people. If we ever have another strong lockdown, you'll probably find these people will be the people that turn around and tell you can't leave your house, so you can't drive around all over the place. There is an estimate of about 25,000 of those people knocking around this country already. So, if you want phase 2 to ever be in existence, we need support. And we have ex-military guys, and we've got thousands of them, ex-paras, ex-marines, all sorts of burly people, that you could pick up the phone and go, come to my house, I have a problem, I have a bailiff at my door, I have some guy that's apparently a policeman. If you want to have that defence system, then it's a defence system. We're not going on the attack, we are simply defending our population. So that's what you get for half of what you're currently paying to your council tax. If you pay your council tax, what do you get for it? Do you get value for money? If we can deliver that service and we have money left over, we are aiming to then start to look at other things where we can support you. So for example, in this country, we are purposefully made, and again, this is another one of those did you know things, purposely made to have the inability to buy cheap dentistry. Now, I'm actually a licensed sports agent, so I don't know if you know this, but every footballer gets every week they get looked at by a dental surgeon to check their teeth, because a footballer's performance can change by having bad teeth. Every week. We are told to pay thousands and thousands of pounds to have our teeth fixed because it makes you ill. So if we could, within this, we'd like to be able to offer things like cheaper or free dentistry as part of that service, for example. But again, don't forget, these are ideas that are coming from the round table, but the people that will make this decision will be you. So then we've got other ideas. So we looked at what was going on in Russia. Now I don't know whether Putin's good, bad or ugly, but I do know that the SWIFT system was switched off. He got switched off the banking system, the main American banking system. So if they can do it to him, they can probably do it to us. If you look at what happened to the Canadian truckers, they went out, they've been shutting down companies, they've been shutting down bank accounts. We have to plan. If we're planning on starting a fight with these people, politely, which we are, then you need to think about what are they going to do to you. They control nearly everything. So if you want to not be at their mercy, you've got to step away from their systems and start building your own ones. So we are building, and we have been building, and I've actually been building it's a long story which I'll tell you another day, but I've been building a private community currency for about 5 or 6 years. It's not something we started last week. We have a blockchain, a private blockchain technology that can act as a currency where you can actually transact in multiple stores of value. And just in case they switch off the internet, we're also launching a paper currency which will be backed by silver. Now, there's a number of reasons why we picked silver over gold. Traditionally, pound sterling is called sterling because it was sterling silver backing it. So there's actually a historical thing there with silver. I personally believe that silver is one of the most undervalued assets on the planet at the moment. So if we wanted our wealth to go up quickly, if we actually get ourselves behind a particular asset that's undervalued, you'll push the value up and then your wealth will go up with it, whilst they're eroding everybody else's wealth with things like inflation. So we want the ability to trade with one another outside of their control. Company incorporation and support. So if you've already self-employed, we can teach you ways to not pay corporation tax. There are clever ways to do it, which I won't go into tonight. But if you are thinking, I need to restructure and rethink it, bearing in mind that, for example, if you open a company on Companies House, you are obligated to tell them who you are, where you live, file accounts, pay tax, do everything that they tell you, and you don't own the company. If, for example, and I don't know if you know this, if you opened a company in British Virgin Islands, for example, you are not obligated to tell them who you are, who the shareholders are. You don't pay tax, you don't have to file accounts. It's a company on Companies House. You're basically filing your company here because that's what you do, that's what you think you need to do. There are other ways to do it. So again, this is the sort of information you'll get for being a member of the Republic. And then once we've got the defence part in place, we're then looking at other problems. What problems have we got? Things like energy prices are going through the roof. Generally, we're being poisoned on a regular basis by food. I haven't put the video up today, but I recently saw a video, and I'm not kidding when I say this, a Big Mac from McDonald's that someone poured molten lava on top of it, a big tub of molten lava, and the burger won. There was nothing. Didn't even flinch. It was like still there. A bit warmer than it was, but you know. So bearing in mind that McDonald's didn't shut and lock down, and this place probably did. There's a reason for that. They're poisoning us on a regular basis. So our food, our water, we have problems with all of it. We have to start tackling that. We're going to tackle it with things like buying your waste off you. So for example, you currently pay energy, you pay for your energy to come back to you in the form of giving your waste to the government. Imagine if we could pay you to collect your waste off of you. So even if I paid you £1, let's say we paid £1, or even if it was £50, but if we could pay you to collect your waste, we take it, turn it into energy and sell the energy back to you at a fraction of the price of what you're currently paying for energy. Imagine that as a service. Now they own the grid, so we've found batteries that you can actually plug on the side of your house that would last at least a week with power. So you'd be off grid from a battery plugged into your house. So when the bin man comes around and collects your waste, they change your battery. That's possible. We are also looking at fuel. I used to live in the Middle East, so I've got some good connections, and Craig did as well. We know we can bring fuel to this country without tax. Now it gets taxed when it gets to this country, when it goes through the ports. It has income duty, then it has fuel duty, and then it has VAT on top of it. So there's actually 4 taxes on fuel when you buy at the petrol pumps. We're planning on an idea of trying to create our own port. If we can get enough support on this, we're going to create our own port, bring fuel into the country, protect the depots where we hold it, and then we have little minivans that will come to your house and fill up your car at your house, minus fuel duty. Now, we think we can deliver fuel. We know we can deliver fuel. We might have problems with people trying to attack our fuel stations, but we know we can deliver fuel at something like 75 to 80p a litre. So you imagine if you were buying your petrol at 80p a litre, how many people would wake up if you told them about it? Sometimes there's ways to get to people that you might not think of. So passports are very easy. Once you've been recognised by another country as being a country, so if we go to another country and say, we're England, do you recognise us? Most people are going to go, yeah, I recognise England. So we thought Russia might be a good one to have a conversation with and see whether they might like to sponsor us as being England. They might find that quite funny at the moment, especially with what's going on. So we only need one other country to agree that we're a country, and we are then a country, officially in the eyes of the international law. And at that point you can issue your own diplomatic passports. You can actually write to other countries and ask for ability to go in and out with carrying your passports. And it's been done by other countries, small states. Driving documentation, we plan to issue driving licenses, but only in the sense of your ability to drive. So we want to make sure that you can actually not kill someone when dealing with a motor vehicle. But the reality is, if you drive anything, that is where you're being paid to drive. So driving documentation is only a requirement for people that are being paid to drive. You are travelling around, and even in their rules, and going back before the rules are even made up, you have a right to travel around this piece of land without let or hindrance is the term that is in their rules when you read their rules. Without letting, everybody knows that is renting, and hindrance is someone interfering with you. So in their rules it says, and if you look at the front page of your own passport, it says the Queen says you must be allowed to go free from any port, and there's ports in the country, without let or hindrance. So anybody that stops you and says, I'm going to charge you for this, or I'm going to charge you for that, are breaking the law or the legal system. Now, this is going to be a combination of things. So, for example, land registry. Most people think when they own property, this is one of your biggest assets, that you have to put it on land registry, otherwise you can't buy it. The reality is, we did some research and we spoke to the land registry, we spoke to the QC at the land registry, no less, who confirmed that 30% of all property in the UK is not on the land registry. 30%. Now, I went, is that like land or is that the property? And they went, no, it's everything. And I went, well, how does that work then? And they went, well, basically, you only have to be on the land registry if you need to borrow money to buy the property in the first place. So it's basically discrimination. If you think about it, if you're rich, you don't have to be on land registry. If you do, if you can't afford it, you're on land registry. Straight away, there's a challenge under the Discrimination Act and Human Rights Act, and read their rules again. But secondly, we're going to write to the Queen and ask her to provide, and to the British government, to provide the receipt where they bought the land. Because if they want to claim to own it, I want to see who they bought it from, or who gifted it to them. And unless they can provide it, that means we all go back to pre-William the Conqueror days, which is you had a allodial title of the land that was yours. And at that point, you own the land that we stand on. So we are going to challenge them politely to provide evidence that they actually have a standing in any way, shape or form, and then that effectively gives us control of the land that we buy. So we then run around going, okay, we'll buy this piece of land, or we'll claim that piece of land, because there's lots of unclaimed land as well. Then ultimately we can just stockpile our own bits of England and say that's ours. Now, we'll have our own rules, we'll do our own thing, you do your thing, we won't bother you, don't bother us. If you bother us, we're the bunch of people that will look after our people. And then we have many, many other ideas. I could go on and on and on for various bits and pieces. But one of the ideas is to find people that are doing great things, help them, and get everybody pulling in the same direction. There are many people trying to sort out health things and food things and buying land. And we're never going to have every idea going. But what we think needs to be there is something that's big enough that we can all identify with. That we can all say, okay, we all pull up. It doesn't matter what path we're going down, as long as we're all going down the same path. We might not take the same route down the same path, but we need to all get on the same path, otherwise we're going to have a problem. So we've currently got some stuff. This is a highlight of some of the people that are involved. We have a social media network which I built a few years ago called In One Place. The Awareness Foundation I'll obviously explain to you tonight, which is an information and education sort of programme. UK Citizen 2021, who recently did a load of challenges. Basically, they've been ones going around handing the police files in to say that there's murder going on with the vaccines and handing it out. They did all the research on that. UK Citizen just agreed to join us and get involved. Centre Reserve, I actually own a bank called Centre Reserve, and we have our own ability to basically do banking and try and protect from some of the problems that are covered in the banking zone. We also own, Sense owns a company called Iron Gold, which is a precious metal store in the Isle of Man. So we have the ability to store precious metals. So if you're thinking, how are you going to do a silver-backed currency? We own that. In One Place owns a share of a gold mine as well. So we have the ability to buy our own metals, so no one can control that. And in addition to that, digital, so if you go to digital.life, you'll see a demonstration of the currency digital, which is basically the currency. So it's a digital currency for all. And effectively, these are some of the resources we're already started with. So we haven't started this with a blank piece of paper. We are very much coming to this idea with the concept of proving this can be done, proving that we can all just stand on our own 2 feet, ignore them, and then spread the word around the rest of the world. If other people then do it, we have 4 or 5 other countries already looking at what we're doing and thinking of trying to do the same thing. And then our idea is to export some of the stuff that we have created to them to save them time, and then we'll make some money from selling them the ideas and bits and pieces, which then means that they can go back into the population, which can then get us better dentistry and things. So what we're looking for from people is people to join. We need mayors, we need local people to start with, we need people that are already in partnerships doing stuff, come forward and say, okay, we want to work with you, we've got ideas. So this only works if we all go, this seems like a plan, and we all follow it. If we don't follow it, none of it will work. Those TSG guys floating around at some point might become a problem. I hope to be wrong about everything I've spoken about tonight. If I'm even half right about even half of it, then I'm worried about what do you do when those people are a problem. Who is going to stand up and go, I'm on your side. I don't see where we go at the moment. So we are not picking a fight with the government. For anybody that's listening or recording me, we are not trying to create a revolution. We're not trying to depose anybody. We're simply saying we don't have to. We actually don't have to. We're not choosing to do so. We actually don't have to follow their rules. Their rules are made up. We have no obligation to form them. If you look at it, Theresa May was actually once on the BBC Breakfast News and said we are policed by consent. If you look at it, you need the consent of the governed to be a government. And you are not allowed, believe it or not, you're not allowed to operate as a profit-making company like McDonald's and pretend to be a government. It's actually treason to do so. Yet they do it to us every single day of the week. So we can keep listening to their lies, and we can believe we can do something about it. For me, I've given up. I'm done giving them another penny of my time. I'm not going to give them any more of my money. I don't listen to them. I'm not interested in anything they've got to say. And if they come at me, I know exactly how to deal with them. This is about going, I'm done with, you've crossed the line. What went on in 2020 has really cottoned on to a lie. We would never have been here 3 years ago. We're here because we all know there's a problem. It's just what are we going to do about it? We can keep talking about the problem and going, look what I found, there's a problem. And everybody goes, I know. Where's the solution? For me, I think we might have one. So this is our sort of statement. We are no longer accepting things we cannot change. It is time to change the things we cannot accept. Action speaks louder than words. Any questions?
So the tax thing, if you're self-employed,
Yes.
you can go down that route because that's your choice.
Yeah.
If you're self-employed, but if you're employed,
Yeah.
I mean, how difficult is it to get the company you work for to not pay your tax, and are they then brought into it or what?
Well, they have brought themselves into it, because what happens is that if you look at coercion, it is against the law to get someone to break the law for you. So the government's telling your employer, for example, to steal your money and give it to them. And the reality is, if you explain to them, and we'll help you explain it to them, so you can go in and say, look, if I can prove to you you're not going to get in trouble, and you actually are not obligated to do this, and I'll prove it to you, then all I'm asking for you to do is hand me my money gross. I'll work for you, you hand me my money, and I'll deal with them. And I'll put any exemption you need, and I'll show you all the reasons why you're not obligated to give them the money. If that person says, no, I'm going to ignore you, me personally, I would leave. Now, if I wouldn't maybe walk out the door and stomp off down the street, I'd be looking for another job. Once I got my other job, I'd move on. If you walked into work every day and your employer punched you straight in the face as you walked in every day of the week, would you keep going? They're stealing your money from you. They are stealing your money from you. You don't owe it, and I can prove that you don't owe it. So look at that person and say, you are stealing from me every single day of the week. You think you're doing the right thing. I'm more than happy to re-educate you. But once I've done that, if you carry on stealing my money, I'll punch you in the face. When you're in a comfort zone, and I mean, and this isn't please don't take any of this as a condemning of anyone's choices. You're in a comfort zone because you've got a job at Fruit, and it's all nice and it's all fine. I was having a conversation earlier, and when you look out the window on a sunny day, right now it all feels all right, doesn't it? You're like looking around going, what are we all doing here? Is it actually really as bad as we think it is? Then you see those guys getting off the port in Dover, and then look up the fact that Vanguard and BlackRock own Apple. I'm a big Steve Jobs fan. I've got every Apple device going. The reality is that isn't the company that was created. It's been taken over. It's been taken over by them. You know, you've got a choice. You've always got a choice. You can sit in your comfort zone, or you can realise you're at war. Once you realise you're at war, if you've decided you're at war, it comes with discomfort. So you can stay where you are and be comfortable. And I've met many people I'm self-employed, so I've met many people over the years that go, I wish I could do what you can do. And they go, but I need the money. So a job is a comfort zone, and that's why we've been trained to get jobs. It's part of the know who you are thing. How many people in here have ever read a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad?
Yeah.
If you haven't read it, you should read it. You put your hand up and said you read it. If you read it and you're still working for them, you haven't read it enough. Read it again, and at some point, your balance will move. It might take time. You know, it's like anything. You build a bridge, you build a building, it takes time to build it. So you don't walk out on the first day, but you go, right, I'm not going to be there any longer. I read Robert Kiyosaki's third book. I was sitting in Mexico on holiday reading his book, and in his book he turned around and said, you can do anything you want if you just set your mind to it. And in it, he was talking about how you can buy property without putting any money down. I'm like, how'd you do that? I came back from that holiday, Googled, and I hate Google with a passion, but at the time I Googled, like, how do I buy a house for nothing? Did some research. Within 3 weeks of coming back, I bought a house for £350,000. I never put £1 down for that house. These books can teach you a lot of stuff if you just listen to them, but most people don't act upon the information. Tonight, I've given you an idea of how we can stop this lot in their tracks. For me, our jobs are going to be the least of our problems if in a month or 2 or 3 from now, I don't know if anybody's seen it today, but they're talking about inflation now in January of 18%. What's Apple giving you as a pay rise? You know, we're just going to become slaves to this system, worse than we already are if we don't do something about it. So I'm not condemning you for what your situation is, but we have bigger problems than most of the problems we ever look at. You know, it's no longer the stuff that we've been always worried about. It's about the stuff we really have to worry about, for me. Yeah.
All this is brilliant. Go along with it, absolutely. Is there a plan or a way of tackling 5G and chemtrails?
Chemtrails, yes, in the sense of fix the problem that they create. So what they're dropping out of their planes is bunches of metal, basically. There are things that can get metals out of your system. So if you're not taking things that remove metals out of your system, you should do some research into that. We have ways that you can do that. So I take something every day of the week that basically removes metals out of my system. Many diseases are caused by metals in your brain and various bits and pieces. There's one way of fixing the problem until we have enough people to go and take the planes out of circulation.
That's what I'm talking about, because detox and so on. But stopping it,
we
see the sunlight.
Again, the way to stop these people is to stop these people. We have to become that tiny. Remember the tiny dot video. Every time you're thinking, how are we going to do this? Just go back to that. You know, they are nothing if we stop giving them our time and our effort and we literally follow them. Now, what was the other one? Sorry.
5G.
We have to take things that are damaging our health down. And for me, you know, criminal damage is only criminal if it's criminal. And how do you have criminal damage when actually you haven't injured anyone? The reality is that a criminal offence, you have to injure another person. Well, if you turn around and say, okay, the 5G tower belongs to who? It belongs to a corporation. So the corporation isn't a person. It's not a living man or woman that owns that thing. It's a company. So you can't have criminal damage if there's no injury to a human being. And it's in the law. So you take them down. If they say it's criminal damage, you go, right, let's have a debate about that one, because it really isn't. For me, everything we're doing is going to be transparent. So, for example, you'll find that there's a presentation online that I do called House of Cards, which will explain in great detail how to challenge debts for free. You can go and watch it. I've done it many, many times. There's at least 10 of them out there. If you watch them, you'll understand how to challenge debts. Go challenge them. You know, I've given it to you for free. If you want a hand on how to do it, we supply a service where we'll hold your hand, but we'll teach you to drive the car like a driving instructor teaches you to drive the car. We don't say, sit in the passenger seat and shut up. Because to me, it's about teaching. We've got to empower people to be able to stand. You don't learn to walk by someone walking for you. You don't learn to swim by someone holding you. Eventually, you have to do it yourself. And that I think is the problem with some of the services out there. And I don't want to sound, but there's been a lot of dirt that's gone around some of these systems, and unfortunately also a lot of misinformation as well. People have put out some very bold claims, and again I won't say who or what said it, but you know, if someone's making a claim, bearing in mind, and again this isn't aimed at Matrix, it's just aimed at everybody. If someone tells you that they've got a solution to a problem, believe it when they prove it. Don't believe it because they tell you, because there's a lot of people right now going 5D and you know this and God knows what else. For me, I'm like, okay, can you show me? Because I've been lied to my entire life about nearly everything that I've actually ever thought was real. I've worked out that literally everything is a load of rubbish. And I thought I'd cottoned onto this. I do a presentation called Question Everything, where I explain to people how the ability to question things that you really wouldn't think to question. And I met a couple of guys the other week who sat with me, and I'm like, yeah, I've sussed this. And they went, how old are you? And I'm like, 50. And they went, well, I'm 7. And this guy he was older than me. And I'm like, how are you 7? He went, well, why are you that age? And I'm, oh, bugger. So basically, the reality is the time's made up as well, isn't it? So you're only above legal age because someone's convinced you that the clock is the clock and the time is the time, and you go, I've had a birthday. Prove to me your age. Could you?
You can't prove anything to anybody.
Exactly. However, their rules, read their rules, the burden of proof lies on the claimant.
Yeah.
So if I'm going to say I'm that old, then you need to prove it. And if you're going to tell me I've broken the law because I'm above a certain age, they also need to prove that you're above that age.
Yeah.
So if I'm 10, because I have like 1,000 galactic years for every year that I'm alive, because I've decided so, I don't fit their rules anymore. So even when you think you've really thought through everything, realise you've still missed a few. And basically don't take my word for anything I'm telling you tonight. Go and check it. Because the stuff that we will give you will come with this is why, this is how to look for it, this is where you can find it. Learn it, go and understand it. I'll give you a tip tonight on how to beat the system. For example, can anybody give me the dictionary definition or the legal definition of the word slave? This is my new trick that I came up with about 4 or 5 weeks ago. Tried it on HMRC and they fell apart in a minute. Okay, so the dictionary definition of the word slave is you don't have a choice. Okay, somebody that has no choice in their decision making is a slave. And there's an act right next to the Cancer Act called the Modern Slavery Act. And in the Modern Slavery Act it says that if you treat somebody like they don't have a choice, it's life imprisonment. Because that's making slavery. And every big company nowadays has a Modern Slavery Act statement on their website going, we wouldn't do that. When they go, you must pay, go, would you like to commit that to writing to me, please? And give me your name as well with it. And when they get it, go, can I just give you the dictionary definition of the word slave? And you might want to read the Modern Slavery Act, because you've just called me a slave. So, and it works, take my word for it. People just literally fall apart when you actually start throwing that at them. It's life imprisonment for committing somebody as a slave. So there are many things in their system that you can actually play with if you just read their rules. Yeah.
So the battery you were talking about, is that a different kind of technology, or is it just a
No.
battery?
No, there's big lithium type style batteries now that can power houses for up to a week. The technology's getting better. So look at cars, and so basically you can actually, it's a big battery. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
There are batteries. There's actually technology out there that we're also talking to, and I forgot to mention this earlier. There's technology out there. There's batteries that can actually breathe the air and can charge themselves from the air. Water can be taken out the sky. Most people think, well, how do you do that? But realistically, think condensation on a window, and that's water falling out the sky. Take a balloon and rub it on your head, and you'll find that there's electric, and you wonder why there's pylons in the sky. What's the pylon? Why aren't they in the ground? Go like that, and you'll find electric in the sky. So if you can actually industrialise that, there are many ways. We're talking to some guys in the States that have got a battery situation which you charge once, and it effectively powers itself. So there are many, many ways to generate energy that doesn't cost a thing. Nikola Tesla had cracked this years ago, and then they just killed him off.
And what would they cost, these kind of devices, when we buy them initially?
It's not as much as you would think, but again, it's not so much about the storage of the battery, it's more about the making the energy. You've got to control the energy. We have to rebuild everything. They control everything. Via a combination of 5 companies, they are in control of pretty much everything.
Oh, yeah.
Vanguard, BlackRock, State Street, Berkshire Hathaway, which is Warren Buffett, and Elon Musk. With those 5 companies, they generally are 51% of shareholders of nearly everyone. Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. I like your presentation and everything.
Thank you.
I just have a question that I'm a bit confused, and I would like to know why you didn't choose the Swiss model instead of basically doing what every country has been doing, which is parliament, mayors, instead of going the Swiss way, which is direct democracy. And I'm interested to know why you didn't choose this path.
Most people, I started investigating banks about 5-6 years ago, and I went through the top 50 banks in the world, went through 10 years of their annual accounts, looked at the numbers, and they're monumentally broken. Deutsche Bank, for example, owes 7,500 times more money they've ever taken on deposit. And then I started telling people, look what I found. Most people went, oh my God, which bank should I use? Is the first question you get. So when you tell someone that something's broken, the first thing they want is something that looks exactly like what they've got, because they can understand it. When you start creating a different version of something, and there's plenty of people creating communities at the moment where they've got names where I'm like, I don't even, where does that go and how does that join with this? And I think, oh, it's a great idea. It's the right idea. I mean, create a new community. But if I need a book to explain it to me, I can't understand it. We've tried to make it as easy for people to go, well, I get what county is and I understand this. And the reality is a lot of people are often going, this is all bad, so we need to do this, which is the opposite. Well, actually, what we have isn't a bad idea. It's just run by bad people. You know, the reality is if you put 5 chefs in a kitchen, one of them will cook the dinner and the other 4 will start helping. The one that's the strongest, the one with the best ideas. You know, you go in a car and you go, right, we're going to go here. Does anybody know the way? Yeah, I do. Follow me. It's just nature. Watch birds fly through the sky. They fly in a triangle with one at the front. I want the people to rise up in every country. And the reality is that we shouldn't even have countries. We should be able to go wherever we want on the world. I've travelled to over 50 countries on the planet. I'm in and out with passports. Why do I need a passport? Freedom is not about that. A bird gets up and goes, I want to go over there. A lion goes, I'm peckish, I'm going to eat you. We have to ask to go to the toilet when we're at school. We've been trained from birth to act like slaves.
Absolutely.
So we have to do what we're only going, this is something people can get their heads around, but we need to break the whole country thing, really. This isn't a globalised thing, it's a simple, freedom is all resources. And I'm not a religious person, but they want to throw the book at me and go, that's the highest book we're going to look at. In it says dominion over everything in Genesis. We have, according to their highest book, dominion over everything. That's not this bit of everything, that's everything. So all people, decent people, should have a say, and these people just need to disappear. The first time I went to court and learned what not to do in court. You know, I went there and they wiped the floor with me, not because I walked out thinking I've won that argument and I lost anyway. And I realised how they beat me. So the reality is that one of the best ways to learn is to do it. You bang your head and fall over learning to walk.
But they're corrupt.
Yeah, but you can play dirty against corrupt people if you know how to. You know, if you learn that, it doesn't matter. A street fighter can still get beaten by somebody with a slap. The reality is you just have to learn to beat them at their own rules, and you have to read what their rules are. For example, do a freedom of information request to the judiciary and ask them about things like the 7 principles of public office. Have you ever done that? Do you know what they are? Now, the 7 principles of public office is the accountability that the British government supposedly sit under. And one of them is things like transparency, la 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 la. But I went to court and they went, for example, the first time I went to court recently in a big court case, went to Chancery trying to prove that my mortgage company doesn't lend me money. So I stood there and the judge, not the defence, the judge turned around and said that the bank doesn't have to explain where the money comes from and they don't have to answer my questions. That happened by the judge. And I'm like, whoa, that can't be right. Because I knew that they did. But I didn't really know exactly how to explain it. I explained it, I thought quite well, but not well enough. So I walked out and went, right, that can't be right. So I went straight to the FCA, right, does a regulated company have to explain themselves? Yes, of course they do. There's the rule, which I've never heard of. Principle 7. If you look up Principle 7 under the Good Regulations Guide, yes, you must answer questions. So I've got that. Right, great. So now I'm in the process of now taking that judge to the cleaners. I want her dismissed from her job. She will rue the day she ever met. Wait and see. Wait and see. You can take these people down. And again, I'll prove this. I've met the guy who bankrupted the FSA. Remember the slide where they're all public companies? They're public companies for a reason. Boris Johnson's a company, so that they're limited liability. They're insured limited companies. If you beat them, they fold and just go away. And he goes, nothing, it's not me, it's the company. The FSA was a limited company I've met the guy, he lives in Manchester, he's a multi-millionaire nowadays. He bankrupted the FSA, he took them to court, he won, he bankrupted them, he's now a multi-millionaire. They closed it down and rebranded it the FCA. So if you think you can't beat them, you can, and I've met people that have. So when you go into it thinking I can't win, you're right. If you go in thinking I can win, you're right. It's just whether you choose to try. Many people, unfortunately, convince themselves before they start they can't do something.
Yeah, but look what they're doing now with the legal system, with the barristers. You know, the whole thing's going to collapse. Anyway.
Barristers are corrupt anyway. I mean, barristers are part of the bar.
Well, the whole thing will
I never took a barrister with me. I went in there and beat a barrister in the argument, but then I lost the case. But I lost the case because they were clever. But I learned what they did. And I'm going back at them now, going, the judge lied in my case, lied. And I've got the transcript now with the lies and all the rules.
It's a judge ruling, isn't it?
Yeah, but the point, a judge, okay, here's something else I learned. After the fact, a judge has no right to make a ruling. Did you know that?
But they do.
Well, they don't have a right to.
Why not?
They don't. There's case law from 1790, I think it is, where a judge has no right to make a decision on a case. They're a judge, they're a referee. The only person that can make a decision, and you'll find this in the Magna Carta, is the jury of your peers.
But if there's not a jury, then whoever is the judge, they're going to have the final say.
If there's no jury, it's not a real court. And if it's not a real court, it requires your consent to be there. It's an invite to come to a party to have a discussion.
Being there, it gives consent. So by being there, you give an authority and you give an consent.
No, you don't give authority to judge when you go there. You might agree to go and have a conversation, but the judge still has no right to make a decision. And when a judge practices from the bench, which is the term I learned again afterwards, that's where a judge that's a barrister is giving an opinion in a case which is against the law. You can't do that. It's called practicing from the bench, and she did it because she gave an opinion. She can't do that, and she gave an opinion because the barrister who I was up against thought I didn't know what I was doing, so they sent some junior barrister, and the woman was like, oh, he's on the ropes, I'll step in here, and she stuck herself in all sorts of trouble. I will get her job off of her before I'm finished. When you are born, they register a birth certificate and they register a whole bunch of stuff around that. At that point, you keep walking around going, that's me. You're admitting to being a trust that you are not.
Yeah.
So if you understand trust rules, there are three parties to a trust. There's the trustees, who is the owner. There's the person who puts the money in the trust. There's the person that can take the money out of the trust. The settlor that puts it in is the person putting the money in. The beneficiary is the money can take it out, and the trustee is the guarantor, if you like, the holder of it. You're not the trustee of you. That belongs to someone else. The first Lord of the Treasury, which is the Prime Minister, and the second Lord of the Treasury is the Chancellor, run the Treasury, which is managing all those trusts. They're the ones that are supposed to pay the bill. So what happens is when they send a bill to you and you go, that's me, you're admitted to be in the trust and agreeing to pay the bill.
Yeah.
You unplug that entire thing. And basically go, I know where I stand and I know where you stand, and when you send me a bill, I'm going to send it back to you because you're the person who's supposed to pay it.
So basically, the status is being a trustee or identifying with a birth certificate.
It takes a full day and it's very intense. I can assure you, and again, there are people that have been through it, so please ask other people's opinion. Don't take my word for it.
Yeah.
Join the Telegram group. There's loads of people on there that have been through it. Ask them, was it useful?
In simple terms, so it's like I identify as the birth certificate, and that's the wrong status, and we create it to what?
Free. Freedom. I started doing presentations about 2 years ago. If you go on in one place, there's a section called The Watch, which is like a YouTube equivalent. It's completely uncensored. You will find, we did a video about a year or so ago with 14 of the top doctors in the world. We had Dolores Cahill and Robert Malone and Tess Lowry and Zev Vasylenko, all of the major ones, all talking for about 2 hours with each other. And that's still on in one place. We got banned on YouTube and thrown off of YouTube within 20 hours of posting it. If you're interested in joining, we actually have a proclamation which we are offering people the opportunity to sign. So the first 500 people that want to join, we haven't quite done the 500 yet, but we're getting there. If you're interested in joining, we're actually offering, because we got told off a few weeks ago, so the £300, if you wanted to pay cash, and you don't have to pay it today if you don't want to pay it, but if you want to pay cash, we will accept £250 for cash to promote cash. And if you'd like to be one of the original 500 people that sign this, which we hope will eventually become a very historical document, you could be party to signing the proclamation.